Pre-Conquest Social Organization and Stratification in Central America by Maggie Abels. Let us begin by defining social organization and social stratification. Social organization is the pattern of relationships among individuals and cultures, like gender, race, and labor, which explain our interactions and relationships with one another. Stratification is the way people are classified into groups based on shared socioeconomic conditions. It is a hierarchical agreement that ranks individuals into categories. Two theories that explain social organization and stratification are structural functionalism and conflict theory. Structural functionalism's goal is to work together and depend on each other to create stability because individuals serve a purpose in society. Humans should seek shared values which create a consensus, integration, and harmony. Social mobility is key. Where individuals begin does not define where they end up. Next is conflict theory, also known as neo-Marxism, which argues that society is not organized by cooperation, but rather organized by competition over scarce resources, which creates constant conflict. The upper class keeps society running smoothly using money and connections for benefit. However, they are dependent upon the lower class who provide for them and experience a great lack of social mobility. In summary, both structural functionalists and conflict theorists believe that social organization and stratification does exist. However, their justifications as to why and if it is acceptable differ. Now let's apply the theories of structural functionalism and conflict theory to the hypothetical situation of the education of a low-class student. The structural functionalists would argue, disregarding background, that they should be educated for high-paying jobs emphasizing autonomy, where the student is given equal opportunities. If they lack resources, there are programs like financial aid to help them participate. On the other hand, conflict theorists suggest that the student is less competent and able and should be trained for a blue-collar job. The student must succumb to their continued stratification and low-class position in society. Let us now take a look at several influential early sociologists who studied and analyzed the field of social organization and stratification: Max Weber, Emil Durkheim, and Karl Marx. Max Weber held a simplistic view of stratification. Class, status, and power are most important and are based on your birth, but also your achievement and merit. Weber also stressed the importance of bureaucracy and a high division of labor, a hierarchy of authority, written rules, and technical knowledge. Emil Durkheim argued structural functionalism, believing that the law is the product and codification of social order, and societies are capable of social mobility if they possess stability. Finally, Karl Marx, the founder of neo-Marxism, associated with conflict theory, argued money is made through the exploitation of the lower-class workers, and society is highly stratified. Where you end up in society is where you began. Next, let us transition to pre-conquest Mesoamerica, a society which exemplifies great social organization and stratification. Between 7000 and 1500 BC, the use of domesticated plants was essential for the survival of the people, and they depended on the use of maize, squash, beans, and chili peppers. Between 2000 and 1500 BC, village farming communities formed and relied on seeds, crops, and roots. As illustrated in the book Central America, surpluses became common and the people became more sedentary. There was a greater need for agricultural labor and society became increasingly stratified. In 1000 BC, elite centers began to arise, which started the pre-classic period, which was characterized by economic exchange, peace and stability, and administrative involvement. Two civilizations we will look at that illustrate this organization and stratification are Teotihuacan and Tikal. Teotihuacan was the most influential society in Mesoamerica in the classic area, boasting an organized state and administration with residential neighborhoods and an irrigation system. Around 200 BC, Teotihuacan held a population of up to 100,000 people, with 70% of their people working in agriculture. As shown in the movie Artisans and Traders, Teotihuacan relied on the production and distribution of maize, as well as obsidian, which fueled their economy and created trade. They were economically interdependent and organized. Teotihuacan became a complex society. When it began, all were equal, worked together, and relied on each other. There was little stratification. However, with increased demand for agricultural labor, society became stratified. The lower class worked in agriculture, providing for the upper class who worked in the administrative sphere to sustain a stable and peaceful society. Another prominent civilization that arose in Mesoamerica was Tikal, with beginnings in 800 BC. This was a classic Maya lowland site which was disorganized, unpopulated, strict, and inflexible, as depicted in the movie Central America, The Burden of Time. Tikal eventually collapses and is deserted. Tikal lacked ecological diversity and had low economic dependence. It was very hierarchical and stratified. There was an extensive lower class of farmers and laborers, a middle class made of artisans, and a small upper class that formed of elites. Tikal illustrates the conflict theory as it was highly stratified and lacked social mobility. With this knowledge at hand, it is easy to conclude that social organization and stratification were prevalent from the beginnings of Mesoamerican civilization and became complicated and convoluted as civilizations reached their peak complexity. Understanding the assumptions of sociology, which state that we are social beings who cooperate for survival, are primarily determined, and create social norms, help to comprehend our societies. Furthermore, sociological imagination aids us in our constant altering perception of the organization and stratification of society, as well as to understand the broader social context for why things function the way they do. There is no denying that stratification and social organization existed in ancient societies, and they have provided the basis for stratification and social organization in today's societies as well. These concepts will never disappear as long as civilizations exist.